In this episode of Backstage Pass on the Boise Beat, I sit down with Mike Gradian, better known as the Mighty DeltaOne of Fifth Empire. From developing efficient management processes to the importance of continuing to learn and community collaboration, Mike shares valuable insights that aspiring DJs and event planners won't want to miss. Join me for a behind-the-scenes look at the hard work and dedication that drive success in the music world. Ladies and gentlemen, Gordie Tamayo here with the Boise Beat. The business that we're going to be chopping shop with is none other than Fifth Empire, owned and operated by my good friend Mike Gradian. How you doing today?
Good. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Otherwise known as, no doubt. Glad to have you, bro. Otherwise known as what?
The Mighty DeltaOne.
The Mighty DeltaOne. Love the name.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I don't know if I've ever asked you. I've known Mike forever, like a couple decades.
Yeah.
And did you ever tell me, like, where did that name come about? I think it was something about chef, being a chef, right? Executive chef before.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird story. It started off with I was going to culinary school, and the Mighty Mos Def had come out with his album, the first one, Black on Both Sides, and I was really just blown away by that album. So I always liked how he had Mighty in front of it. So kind of kept that. Well, when I was starting to come up with DJ names, that kind of stuck with it. And then I was real big. Well, growing up, all the 80s movies, Chuck Norris, Missing in Action, the Delta Force. And so when I was working at the Grove Hotel, I was a chef for 20 years. I was executive sous chef and chef de cuisine. Me and my buddy Joe Crespi, we were kind of the ones in charge of the kitchen there. And so we had come up with this thing where we were all the Delta Force. Anyone that was really worthy of having a Delta Force shirt. So we were Delta Force. So I was Delta 1, he was Delta 2, and Delta 3. And if you earned a shirt, then you were basically in there. So that's how I became Delta 1. So it was the Mighty DeltaOne.
Nice. That's a cool story, man.
Yeah.
So how did you go from being a chef, executive sous chef, to DJing? Like, how did that take shape?
Well, I've been doing music my whole life. I started playing trumpet second grade, and I played all the way through graduated high school. And it was kind of fun. In second grade, my band teacher had us all go pick whatever instrument we wanted to play. I wanted a saxophone, but there was none left. And we were on Air Force Base living in England, my dad being Air Force. So I picked up a trumpet, and then he said, all right, go put that back in the storage room now. And everyone's going to learn how to play the drums, and you're going to learn about rhythm. So we all sat and learned about, how to count quarter notes, half notes, and play the bass drum, snare, just the basic stuff. And we did that for like 6 months before we even got to play any instruments. So that was really interesting, because that really showed me rhythm and showed me the basics of notes and reading music. And then we got into trumpet. So I started playing that, and did from second grade all the way to graduated high school. I was solo ensemble competitions playing trumpet. I was in jazz bands. I was in concert bands. Did everything I could, especially living overseas. I was just in a lot of different things that keep me occupied. And so that also led to, when I was in high school, I was in a marching band, and I played the drums. I was the marching band leader. I can't remember what it was called, but yeah. So we do a lot of stuff over in England, a lot of different events. And then when I came back to the States, didn't really know what to get myself into when it came to music. I almost joined the Marine Jazz Band. I had an opportunity there, but my dad being in the Air Force, he's like, so yeah, I decided to hold off, came back to the States. And then as soon as I got back to the States, I was just blown away by different kinds of R&B. My roommates in Pocatello, I went to ISU for about 1.5 years, 2 years almost. And one of my roommates was listening to a lot of like Jodeci, and he's turning me on all kinds of stuff like this. And I was just really just like all in on that stuff. That, and then DJ Shadow came out with his first album. Snoop Dogg came out with his album, and I was just really blown away by all this new music. Being overseas, you pretty much just get what they have at the base exchange, which is like the main store to buy stuff, whatever CDs they had. So once I got back to the States, I was just really blown away by all this cool music that had come out. And then so I went to school there, ISU, for a couple of years, and then moved back to Mount Home. My dad was getting ready to retire from the Air Force, and he just said, "Hey man," he said, I'm getting ready to retire. I'm gonna move up to Meridian. You should see about checking out BSU. And that's when they had a culinary school there, and it was an accredited program. So I decided to go there. But I was like really into music, my whole life. And growing up, my mom literally had a different record player or a cassette player, a little boom box in every one of our rooms, and we all had different music going on. Really into Sergio Mendes, listening to a lot of that in Brazil 66. And so when I came back to the States and started going to culinary school, I hey man, maybe I'm gonna get me some turntables or something, And so I got a couple turntables. Thank you, Mike Jackson, the house that I actually live in right now. It used to be his old house. He sold me my first set of turntables. Shout out to House Doctors. He sold me my first set of turntables and some equipment. So I got into that, and I didn't really do too much with it for a while. I was really wanting to learn about making music. And so I got some programs and messed around a little bit. But it was really the DJ Shadow album, Chemical Brothers, stuff that just was like they were making this stuff at home or maybe in a studio, but it was accessible. And this is like 25 years ago. And so while I was going to culinary school, I was making cassette pause tapes. So that's where you hit record. You're recording from cassette to cassette or off the radio or off a record player. You play your cassette in. So I record a song and then hit pause, and then I'd find another cassette that had another song that I wanted on it and pop it in, and then hit play and record. And I'd make my own mixtapes. So this is like 25 years ago. I still have some of them. So so I would be making these mixtapes for us to listen to in the kitchens at all the places I worked at. And because I was the boss, I always forced everyone to listen, but everyone loved my stuff, and everyone's like, "Hey man, make me a copy of that. Make me a copy of that." And so I'm sure they're still floating around, but it was just it was a combination of hip hop and like I was really big into Jamiroquai, because after I graduated in '93, they had come out with their first album. So it was kind of like it's like a lifeline for a long time. I listened to them, and it kept me, after living in England for 11 years, you kind of miss it. But so that they kind of kept me going. Did that for a long time, and it was, I didn't really get into like really DJing for almost another 10 years, probably. I mean, I had my stuff, messed around, made some beats. I had like a little SP303 it's like a little like sampler, and I'd mess around and do that. And then one of my buddies, Cade, he would come over and we'd make beats, and he'd rap, and he's like, "Hey man, I need to introduce you to my buddy Ryan." So I met this guy, Ryan Lancaster, one of my best friends now, Triple Ops. And so we started getting together, met up with my buddy Sam I Am down in Vegas, does a lot of stuff with Bootleg Kev. He's like his producer for a show right now. We met up and we started doing a lot of stuff together, and it was funny because I hadn't seen him for a long time, for 10 years. He got married and had a kid, and same with me. And I went to a Dave Chappelle show at the Knitting Factory. It was Big Easy at the time, and sitting next to me is Sam, and I hadn't seen him for quite a while. And I said, "Sam, what's up?" He's like, "Hey man, I just started DJing." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I've been doing it at that time I had really like started messing around for about 3 or 4 years." So we got together, and he said we should get together and set our stuff up and like kind of mess around. And so we started doing that, and in like 1 year he like surpassed me, and he was like literally like every day practicing. So yeah, it was kind of cool. That's how we kind of really started,
Nice. So so that's, I mean, you were obviously working on your craft, this whole time as you're doubling up as, a chef and moonlighting as a DJ.
Yeah.
And just kind of honing your craft over time, right? Like, talk to me about those earlier days of like getting your first gig? Like how did you start doing that? Like many people that are, in this space, I think that's one of the things they maybe struggle with, is figuring out, okay, how do you land a gig? How do you go out and start working and putting this craft to actually turn in some money? Um, how did you first start off? Was it you hunting it down or did it come to you?
It was kind of different. So I was, because of my chefing and managing and doing different things. One of my first real times to start getting opportunities as DJ was was the general manager of Montego Bay back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
It's over off of Lake Harbor, and I had became business partners with Brant Casey and Wes Harris, who's the owner of Montego Bay. We closed the restaurant down after about a year or so. It was like a high-end restaurant that we had bought from Jared Couch, and it was called The Dish. Super fun. We did a lot of really great stuff. But then after we closed that, Wes came up to me and said, "Hey man, what do you think about closing the restaurant down and just turning it into another bar, and we extend out Montego Bay? We only have one employee, a lot less to deal with." And I said, "Yeah, let's do it." So we closed it down, remodeled it, and then I was looking at trying to like fill up nights that were slower. So I had just met up and had been hanging around with Sam quite a bit, and Sam was like, "Hey man, I said, "What about if we try to do like a Tuesday night, like a hip hop night at Montego Bay?" And that's kind of where it all started. So we did. I still have a flyer for it too. We were doing like De La Soul and like Mos Def, that kind of stuff. And we were buying a lot of records from Record Exchange or ordering them. And Sam was all in. He had graduated from Boise State. He's like an IT guy for a big a company building like spec homes, just different things. And so he had a little extra money. So he was always getting like the 12-inch records that had the one single on one side. It had like two or three singles from like one from Nelly and one from Biggie, and so we were doing these Tuesday nights, and it started getting really, really busy. And it got to the point where we'd bring like 12 crates of records down from my office upstairs, and because it's a 2-story building. And it would you'd only play like one crate worth of records for the whole night, but you'd have to have 12 crates. And it got to the point where I was like, dang. And so Sam's like, "Hey man, I think there's this new software that just came out. It's called Serato. It's called Scratch Live at the time, which is now Serato DJ." He said, "We don't have to bring your records anymore. You can just use MP3s and WAV files, and you have these time coded records." So he wanted buying it, like the very first version of it. And so from there, I hooked up with Gil Aguilar. I was letting him do a Thursday night house night. And then I met up with my buddy Jeremy. Shout out to the Ivory Viking. And then we had Randy Markham and myself. And so we were basically, and Sam, and we were doing the nights there at Montego Bay. And then after Montego Bay, probably maybe about a year later, I wound up quitting working there and decided, hey, let's look at trying to get us into some other places. So I was more of almost like a manager. We were the Fifth Empire crew, and we came up with the name. I came up with the name Fifth Empire from my business partner Brant. We were watching Dave Chappelle show had just come out, and we were like literally like in between our breaks. He was like, "Have you seen any of these?" And I was skits, and I was like, "No." So he started showing me, and I was just, we're just rolling all the time laughing. And he's got one skit where he goes, "I plead the fifth," and so my buddy Brant was constantly like always, first there was the one thing that we had to do with this food, and then we had to prep that other thing, and then there was a fifth, and he was doing that all the time. So we had this in our office that we shared. We had this big piece of wood that kind of like it kind of surrounded this air conditioning unit that was sticking out the window. And so I spray painted Fifth Empire, and I spelled it FIF, right? And if people come in and go, "What's Fife?" and "What's Fife Empire?" I'm like, "That ain't gonna work." So then we changed it. I changed it to Fifth. And so we were Fifth Empire crew, and then we decided, so Sam took it upon himself and made some cards, some business cards, and we were going around, and we literally, I got everybody into like the loft. We were doing stuff at Bada Boone's, or we were still doing stuff at Montego. we were everywhere. We were doing so many different places, and pretty much like Hannah's. We were at Hannah's Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, and then Thursdays was all ours. And we were on Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. We'd play in between, and so I would just basically find out like, Gil and Sam were a lot further along in their DJing capabilities, so they were doing the loft pretty much, and that became like a spot. And it was pretty much them there, and then me and Jeremy and Randy would pick up a lot of the other places. But like Jeremy was pretty adamant about doing boom bap stuff. He didn't want to sell out and play all the other stuff. And at that time, it was like Nelly and like Little John. Yeah, and so Gil and Sam were playing a lot of that stuff at the loft, but it was like after a while, like that place closed down because of the vibe that they were creating with that music. Right. Now we all love that stuff. You can play Little John at a wedding, like Get Low, but back in those days, it created an environment that was a little more hostile. So,
talk about that for just a second. The power behind.
Absolutely, I 100% agree that the music that you play can create a different sort of environment where you can have people getting crazy. And I used to always tell them, I was like, you guys got to quit playing on, back at that time, we were like, man, that's way too hard, man. You're going to, girls are not coming in here, and it's getting, guys are grabbing people or grabbing women, just all that kind of stuff. And that place became pretty hostile, where I think they shut down because someone got stabbed or something like that. But when it came to like helping everybody out, we would do these monthly meetings, and we would talk about what we're trying to do. And I wound up spending a bunch of money and getting like 700 t-shirts made, and we were selling those and handing them out. And then it was on the business side of things, Sam and Gil were both my business partners. So when we came up with the paperwork for it and getting licensed, I was 50% owner, and those guys were 25, right? Gil hadn't started his record label Treasure Grooves yet. Once we got the 1099 from Hannah's, and it said that we owed like $13,000.
Oh man!
I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute!" Right? And so I started doing all the numbers, and I was like, in taxes, I was like looking at the numbers. I was like, "Well, all these dates that you worked and all these days that you worked, you owe this much money." This is and we didn't know. I didn't know what I was doing back in those days. So, so I wind up like restructuring the business, and I was the only owner, and they were less. They were off the books altogether. Gil started his own thing, and then I said, from now on, you guys are taking care of your own taxes. If they're paying you and they're 1099 you, that's your own stuff. So that kind of like was that was kind of a big mix up for us. And so we wound up after that, I had been helping everybody else out, getting all these gigs at all these different places, and I was putting my career and me being a DJ and producing on the back burner for everyone else. And it started to get to the point where I was like, I'm getting left behind here. I was really good at hooking us all up with the opportunities. And then we kind of all slowly went our step. I mean, we were always really close and always doing stuff, but then I started doing our separate things. And that's when I started focusing on what I wanted to do more.
What would you say are some key takeaways that you've learned since you've been doing this for a minute? You pivoted from, working in the restaurant industry for some time, and then all of a sudden you decided to make a leap and do what you're doing full time, right? Like, what was the catalyst that caused you to say, okay, now I'm ready to take a leap. I'm done kind of juggling this and moonlighting.
Well, I've been paying taxes on Fifth Empire since 2006, so that's a pretty cool thing. And this is, every year my business has grown by almost 20%, and that's good for being organic for me, but for, geez, man, honestly, for like almost 20 years, I was DJing what most consider full-time, as well as being a chef full-time. And I was like 60, 70 hour weeks. And somehow I managed to also work a Friday, Saturday, every weekend, sometimes Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays. And, I think being a chef really helped me to really push me so much where, when you're a chef, you almost, back in the day, it'd be like 2 o'clock and we'd be in the kitchen and we'd still have like 5 more hours worth of stuff. And you start playing these games, mental games with yourself where you're just like, oh, I need to be in bed right now. I need to be in bed, where, these other chefs sleep for like 3 hours, 2 hours. We would get hotel rooms upstairs at the Grove Hotel just to sleep for 2 hours and come back down and get right back at it. It's just no way of life. It's horrible. And you don't get paid. You work, the amount of money that you make versus what you're actually doing is just, it's probably one of the worst industries you can be in, honestly.
Well, I mean, speaking of that though, that sounds like that may have kind of compelled you to consider like your value, your worth, your pricing structure that you have as a business owner now, right?
Yeah,
Like how did you go about
making that leap.
yeah,
Well, so
well, not just making the leap, but determining like your pricing, for example, like because I know DJs out there that I mean they'll go DJ a wedding for like $300,
yeah, which I've
right?
done, like we were talking about. Yeah,
Yeah, but then
yeah.
that's not your pricing anymore, obviously. Like, talk about
No,
that.
yeah, and a lot of times there was guys back in those days that were local DJs playing here and there, and they were charging 500, and I was like, how are they charging $500 when I'm doing the same thing, And a lot of it's just like, creating that boundary, or creating that. A lot of times for music and for, I would say, for being a chef or being in the restaurant industry, a lot of people don't really do a very good job of creating like a blueprint for themselves, like a map,
Mhm.
like a
Yeah,
business plan. And so you just go with the flow. And then like 5 years later, you're just like, I've still been shooting from the hip every day
yeah.
instead of like thinking about what I'm trying to accomplish. So
Mhm.
when it came to like being a chef for a long time and then pivoting out of it was, toward the very end of my career as a chef, I was working at a Lively Chef Catering. Shout out to them, best caterers in town. Um, they were amazing. Gary and Dee, the owners, were really supportive and lots of different things for me. And I still would do weddings sometimes on the side, and I would still still just very still immersed in the music scene, and DJing and stuff. But I was still working like 80 hours, 70 hours a week. It was really
Mhm.
hard. And during the slower times of the year, I would have to still work even more to cover all the other employees that we couldn't afford. So I got headhunted by a company, by a husband and wife that wanted me to go. They were opening up a new restaurant in Eagle. They wanted to go super high end. They wanted to have like elk sirloin and just the crazy stuff. So I was like, okay, this will be super fun. They paid me a lot of money. And it was like right when I started, I didn't have a day off for 3 months,
Mhm.
and so I hired all my employees. We made the most amazing food. I worked there for 1 year. It was really difficult to work with them because they had very, very little experience. They were very, very just difficult to work with. We'll just keep it like that. And so I felt, after the full year, I felt like I accomplished everything that I wanted to do in the food service industry, especially
Mhm.
as a chef. I had my name outside on a little plaque as the executive chef. I got to have all these amazing employees. We were making everything from scratch. We were cutting our own elk sirloins. We were doing everything, making our own sausages, all of our desserts. Everything was fresh. And then I was just had it with them, the couple, just because of how they were. It's just people,
Mhm.
It's okay if you don't know you're done, but we can all work together. But when you're over here, like wanting to nitpick about things and then you don't even have the open sign up on the outside of the restaurant, it's like, nah, come on, man. So yeah, I think it was right around Christmas. I just had it with working so much and being just dealing with this situation with them. So I was like, that's it. I'm done. I'm gonna go do something else. And that was when I was like, all right, I'm just gonna go try music. I had already established a part-time business that was making good. I was almost like full-time income, but doing part-time work. And
Mhm.
so I decided, I was gonna just go with it. And so I had a buddy that had a window cleaning business that would give me any extra hours I wanted. Never done that before. Never even climbed a ladder or been on a roof. So that was all new. And so that allowed me to basically really go a little harder on doing music. And now it's been amazing. Like you and me have talked about quite a bit when it comes to like weddings and what to charge. When you start to break it down and look what everyone else is charging, you know, it's for a reception just here in town, minimum of $1,500 should be close to what you're charging. And then, ceremony included, and how far you're traveling, and how involved you are with the wedding. If you're actually going to be doing a lot more coordinating, or or they have a wedding coordinator. And yeah.
What are some of the things that you would say? Because now you're talking about decades of experience coupled with the increase in value that you're bringing to a couple or an establishment when you're coming in and doing work for them.
Yeah.
Like, what would you say now with some time under your belt have been some of the biggest, like, aha moments or resources that have helped you in running your own successful operation of a DJ company, right?
Yeah.
What would you say has been some of the things that you've like picked up on the most that, man, if you would have known him 10 years prior, the game would have been a
Yeah.
little bit different. Maybe you wouldn't have worked so many hours and haven't have been pulling doubles working, another job.
Yeah, well, I definitely think that that the old saying where if you spend some money to make money, and I really focused on that a couple years ago with you, having you help me really kind of work on things, and kind of like ramping that up, and that right there made a huge difference in just the overall what I'm showing everybody, or showing to the world what I want my business to look like. And I don't have like a traditional wedding DJ business like the
Right.
majority of other business. I still I love my creative side of, I like to make flyers. I like to do the artwork side of things. I love making music. I love putting out projects. I love DJing out in the clubs. Maybe not so much as I used to anymore, but I love having that because it keeps that fire underneath you. And like having someone like you that we've been able to talk about how we can make things better or whatever. Just how the wedding intake form that we created really just that right there is a lot of years in the making.
Mm.
I've used software that's been other companies that I work with, they've paid a premium to use the software, and what we created in that wedding intake form is pretty basic, but it's way more thorough, so that if anybody were to fill that out, at least I know, if I've never even met you, I could do a really good job for you at your wedding just based on you filling that out. That like the whole 10,000 hour rule where you're practicing, I've probably got 50,000 hours into it now. So, it kind of helps out because like there's a lot of, like Jordan, I'm a big Packer fan, and everyone says that, Jordan Love is, he's our new quarterback. And I think a lot of it comes down to is the more reps that you get, the more different scenarios you're going to see. And that's the same thing with weddings. Like before I would show up with a bag with every cord that I owned, and then I'm like and I didn't give myself enough time to set up, and I didn't realize that they're going to have me out in the middle of this field, and I'm like digging through all these wires trying to find out what I got. Now it's like all separated. I have everything, like this bag is for this, for the ceremony, this bag's for this, to keep it so simple that I don't even have to think about it. It's just a matter of
Developing
picking
a
up and
process.
going. Yeah. And so,
Yeah.
and I'm still learning, and a lot of it's, there's a lot of DJs locally that I watch posting and just how they do stuff that probably do it even better than I do. But I know that when it comes to my business, especially when I'm doing a wedding or an event, you can definitely know that I got you covered. I'm going to take care of business. I'm going to show up with really good equipment. I don't know how to use my equipment. I'm going to play really, really good music. And that's the biggest thing that I think. You can be a DJ that's on the microphone the whole time, but if you're still playing "Oops, I Did It Again" or like certain there's certain go-to songs for weddings that are still
Yeah.
very, very popular. But if you're playing those B-sides at a wedding and people are like, "What is this guy playing?" It's noticeable. And
Yeah. So
I think that's what.
how do you determine that? How do you determine, like, I'm tapping into the mind of a DJ now and knowing how to read a crowd and knowing, how to play the music that you play. Cause, you might go into a wedding and I know beforehand you're probably gaining some insight as to what kind of music that they want. How do
Sure.
you, as an artist in the moment, you know, read a crowd and determine, hey, this is what I need to switch up to. I'm going to throw in, some 80s rock right now because that's what's going to get the crowd lit versus throwing a 90s, R&B throwback
Yeah.
track. Like, talk to me through that
Well,
process.
yeah. So, I do the radio show at Tropico FM. Shout out to Tropico FM, 103.1 FM on the local airways now. Um, but so there I play whatever I want. And there I'm digging for music that I really want to play that I'm driving around listening to. That I played
Hmm.
at the Mode I played the Mode last Saturday, and there it was like, okay, there's a bunch of people in here. It's a chill cocktail hour vibe, but I want them to have fun. So I started off at like 90 beats a minute, and I wanted to play stuff that I really want to play, but still sprinkling stuff that is going to keep them entertained. But weddings a whole different thing.
Hmm.
Weddings are my dog wants to come in and say hi. But weddings are a whole different thing, man. Weddings are like, with that wedding intake form, I have them fill out everything, all the important songs, their must-have songs, and I make sure I download those. And then if they want to create like a playlist on Spotify or Apple Music, I have them, throw some more songs that they might want to hear, like during cocktail hour or dinner hour. I would say like 50% of the time, couples don't really care. And so I've created these playlists for cocktail hour, dinner hour, dancing that are all pretty much based around Billboard Top 100 over the years.
Hmm.
Everything from Elvis to Bruno Mars, obviously all clean music. And so, meeting with them and going over things and kind of looking at what they've given to me, I'll know like, oh, these guys are a little heavier on the country music. And so
Hmm.
over just the past 5 years, I really started dialing it in. Like, you don't need every single Alabama song.
Right.
You don't need all 15 of their albums. You just need their top five. So
Hmm.
like Spotify and Apple Music and a lot of these other companies, streaming companies, will give you their top five songs. So,
Hmm.
ultimately this is a cheat code for all you DJs out there. If you just go and find those top artists, look at their top five songs, just gather those, get those, and definitely download these songs,
Hmm.
download the stuff. Don't rely on streaming when you're going to go to a gig and your hotspot doesn't work all of a sudden, and then you're so excited, you've been telling everybody about it, you've been promoting it, and then now you can't even play any of the music because your hotspot doesn't work, or the internet's not very good at one spot. Or so definitely download your music. That's probably the most important thing that I would say for DJs. But when it comes to curating this vibe for weddings, weddings are not. The more familiar they are with the song, the better it is. And it's unfortunate, but to me, a wedding is about showing up on time, making sure your music works, your transitions are smooth, everything is nice, and you look presentable, you're fun to work with. And then going from ceremony to cocktail hour to dinner hour, and you're helping to facilitate the whole day through emceeing. And some guys are great at emceeing, and they focus a lot of their attention on that. I can do a great job of emceeing, but I'm not trying to be the master MC. I'm trying to make sure your whole day is nice and smooth, that you have fun, there's no hiccups. I work well with all the other vendors, and then when it comes to playing the music, like a couple 2 weddings ago, they were like pretty heavy into country music. So even that, it's about playing all the country music that everyone knows. You can't be
Hmm.
playing, it's great to play Morgan Wallen, but if you're playing a Morgan Wallen song that no one knows just because you like it, that it's and even that is like there's a certain time to play that. It might not
Yeah.
be a great dinner when you're playing a bunch of wedding love songs, and then you're getting into a Morgan Wallen song where he's talking about chasing beers or chasing
Right.
whiskey. It's probably not the best track on that.
What's your favorite thing about being a DJ today? I mean, back in 20 years ago, 15 years ago, there might have been some stark differences in what attracted you to this space. Obviously you like the creative side of things where you're able to produce your own music. And so you consider yourself not just a DJ, right? But a producer
Yeah,
who
absolutely.
makes music. But you do operate in the DJ space with playing at establishments, playing for weddings, etc. What would you say now as you've got some experience under your belt? Like, has your desire changed? Has your passion for what you're doing changed? And what do you love most about being a DJ now?
I love a couple things, like definitely breaking new tracks to people. That's like one of my main things that I love doing. Like I would say, like when I'm out playing in the clubs, or I'm playing, like obviously if I'm playing in a place that I know that everyone's coming there to dance, I can't be there's certain tracks that I know I gotta play, and it may be brand new stuff, maybe stuff that I don't even like, but
Hmm.
I might try to find reworks of it that are more like what I would like to play. But I love playing new music that no one knows, and people coming up to me afterwards like, "Dang, dude, all those
What's
tracks that
up?
you played were so awesome. What was all that stuff?" You
Mm.
know, that's something I picked up from my buddy Sean Moppin, aka Bass Ghost. Shout out to him out there. He really influenced me a lot on. He would always play these sets, and I was just like, "Dang, dude, all these songs you're playing are so amazing. I don't even know any of this stuff is." And to me, that's a good testament to a good DJ. Is like when you keep everyone excited, you know. And there was just been many years of just playing where people would come up to me, and it could be an older couple in the corner that were like, you know, at the mode, and they come up afterwards and hand you a $50 tip because they're just like, wow, you know,
Yeah.
your song selection's awesome, you know. That, and you know, technology has really made DJing even more fun,
Hmm.
because with these controllers now, and you know, you have all kinds of different people that have different opinions about, you know, keeping it
Sure.
old school, or not using a laptop, using flash drives, using records, whatever it is. I like to do it all. I've tried to
Yeah.
master it all. I can play records, I can use flash drives, I can use my computer, I can use a controller, I can use turntables. So whatever it is that I'm using, I try to get, you know, and I think a lot of that has to do with just lots of repetition. I've done it so many times, so many different ways, that I've been able to figure out whatever it is. But I would say the other thing too is, like, now after all these years of DJing, I would have moments where I would go maybe open up for somebody famous, you know, here in town or out of town, and I would start to doubt myself. Am I going to play the right stuff? Is this
Hmm.
going to work? Or now, and now it's like, I know I can, like, you want me to go super hard house, you know, you want me to get real dirty with it. I got you. You know, you want me to play like soulful gospely house, or you want me to play like brand new hip hop, you know, that's on the radio. I can play all that. Or if you want, you know, throwback stuff, whatever it is. But I've also learned that, you know, I've been really blessed to have some parents that really introduced me to a lot of different genres of
Hmm.
music, which have
Hmm.
really helped me to keep. I've been able to really learn about all different kinds of music, and dig for the stuff that's in each one of those genres, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I've had a chance to like hang out with Z Trip a couple times, and just to see his flow and what he does, and he'll play everything from like the Jackson 5, and then go into, like, you know, Lil Jon, you know,
Hmm.
and it sounds good, you know.
Hmm.
So that kind of like, oh, okay, I want to try to
Yeah.
do that. Yeah.
That's cool. No, it sounds like you got a kind of a blend of different influences and experience from living overseas. You know, like you alluded to, hearing and being a fan of Jamiroquai,
Yeah.
and the music that your parents influenced you into listening to as well, bossa nova,
Yeah.
right? And so all that then coming stateside, you know, drastically kind of broadened your scope of music and your taste for what to capture. And I think that kind of parlays really well with the creative side of you that loves to produce content
Yeah.
and produce, you know, music that is coming from a blend of all that, and then how that impacts what you play for people, because you can kind of relate, right, to different pockets of people and being able to
Yeah.
give them what they're wanting.
Yeah,
I
and
think
that
that's cool.
happens a lot of times. There's a lot of DJs, and you know, I pr- support everybody. Like, you know, you need something from me, call me up. I'll help you out in any way I can.
Yeah.
But a lot of DJs are, you know, you talk to them, it's like, oh, you're a DJ, okay, cool. What kind of equipment you got? Well, I just borrowed my buddy's controller, and I'm like, okay, well, that's a good start. You know, was we did a lot of that too. But I mean,
Hmm.
if you're really serious about wanting to be a DJ or producer, you got to invest. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And if you're going over to somebody's house and you're making music with them, that you're investing your time. But
Yeah.
when it comes to like, you know, all the other things, DJing and producing, it's all basically, you know, putting your time in, and learning, and just and putting putting in work. You know, you got to put the action in.
Yeah, no, that's great insight, brother. I
Yeah,
appreciate that. And yeah, for sure, I give you a shout out because you are one of the most generous persons I know as a whole. But in the DJ space, I know not everybody is as so forward with sharing their resources, their contacts, etc. One of the things I've noticed about you is, you're not intimidated, and I guess, yeah, intimidated is the word for it, by other people in this space because you got a track record and you've got years under your belt and you know what you're capable of, so there's no need for comparisons at that point. And I've seen you share so many resources with people where most would keep it really close to their chest. So
yeah,
props to you for doing that.
yeah. I appreciate that. You know, a lot of that just comes down to, back in the day, like when we were spinning records, guys would put labels on their record so you couldn't see. And then it was like, and one of our buddies, he was really big. Hey, then we looking at what I'm playing. And you're like, all right. So we would like swap his records around. And like, all right, now let's see what happens. But a lot of the other things too. There's a lot of DJs that are they're focused on this 1 hour set that they're gonna go play at some place, and they're like, okay, I'm going to this place. I'm gonna play these 10 songs for the 1 hour or whatever it is, maybe like a house set or whatever. And then they get there and they're like, oh no, that vibe that I was going for isn't gonna work, And so then they're like all worried, and then their vibe for their whole event. Now they're stressed out and have anxiety. What I've come to learn is like it's best to just put a good folder of good music together. That yeah, you want to have something maybe that put together, but you could go a couple of different ways with it if need be, And that's why I like using a laptop.
Yeah.
Or it's so much. There's so much more you can do
Right.
quickly. You can go from one genre to the next real quick, or something might pop off where you're like, oh yeah, this track will work really good, and you can look it up real fast. So where you're on a flash drive, you gotta like back out of the folder, back out of this folder, go into this folder. Is it in this folder? Did I put it in record box to make sure that it's BPM, because I don't know what the BPM is, and it's awesome to have a flash drive if you're only going to play for an hour and go anywhere in the world and just stick your thing in there and you're ready to play. That's cool. I know that's easy to do, but it's also like, those CDJs that you're popping those flash drives into are $3,000 a piece. Do you have two of those?
Right.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
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 That's great insight, bro. No, I appreciate that. I appreciate you sharing. I hope everybody else that's listening is picking up on some tips from an OG. I can call you an OG, right? We'll call you a veteran in the game. Although after all those years, bro, I got more gray hair than you, I think.
No, I shaved off on my gray day. Yeah.
So I hope people. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, the other thing too is like, it's almost like it's hard to really get people to understand. Like the more you share, the more it comes back. I know you're gonna read that in a million books and have all these different entrepreneurs say that kind of stuff, but truly something that I've really noticed in the past 3 to 4 years, like the amount of opportunities that come about from it. And I don't do it for that purpose at all. I could care less, but it's wild how, some people are so caught up into thinking what everyone else is doing or how they're getting jealous about this other DJs doing this or that. It's like, we could have a competition where I give everyone the same exact folder. You got 30 songs in it. There's 10 of us, and we're going to see who can mix those, whatever songs you want out of those 30 tracks. You only get to play for half hour. So you pick whatever one you want. And every one of us will have a different set. Right. Different way of playing it. So it's like, a lot of what a lot of people get so caught up on is just all in their head, really.
No, exactly. Yeah, it is. It totally is in your head. If you focus on your own craft, focus on the lane that you've been given and what you're, supposed to be running in, you don't got room to be looking at what everybody else is doing. So I feel you on that one. Yeah, phenomenal.
I read one more insight real fast. I read this book it's called Welcome to the Jungle. It's about being an entrepreneur as an artist in the music industry. And one of the things, this is for all the DJs and producers out there, one of the things that I learned from that book that was really helpful for me is like he explained, like, think of yourself as you're on a golf tour. You're not competing you are competing against other people to win, But golf is a game where you're just trying to like keep your strokes as low as you can, and it's really about you're competing with yourself. How bad, and that's and being a DJ and producer has been the same thing for me, where I used to look at like, oh, this guy's doing this and that guy's doing that, and there's been like so many amazing people in town that have done so many awesome things, like what Gil's done with Treasure Grooves. He's got well over 200 official tracks worldwide with the best producers in the world that he's worked with. You look at people like Eric Rhodes, who I used to book him at Lush and all these different things, and now he's famous all over the world. There's all these different people like Sam AM. He's doing stuff with Bootleg Kev. They got one of the #1 most listened to radio shows, like urban hip hop stuff in the world. So it's really cool to see that, you stick to it. The door will open up and you'll have opportunity, so it's just grind.
Yeah. That's what's up. That's great insight, brother. I appreciate you sharing that with audiences here. Hope they're picking up on what you're dropping here. Of course. And as always, it's been a pleasure having you on deck here.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, bro.
You got it, bro. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.